Hello, everybody out there on the Twitters, the YouTubes, and wherever else you are coming at us from the interwebs. It is I, Ginger. We are back finally after many, many weeks of a hiatus. We're back with another episode of Fighting the Void. And to commemorate the occasion is good friend and longtime friend of the show is everyone's favorite little firebrand, Red.
Hi.
And that wasn't a short joke, by the way.
What?
I did not even intend that as a short joke when I said little firebrand.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I just want you to know that I was looking out for you and not making a short joke.
I appreciate it. I'm glad you keep bringing that up, though.
Well,
really
you know,
nice
I can
of
only
you.
bring it up so far.
Oh, come on. What the hell?
I'm sorry. You opened the door to that one.
I did, and I do it all the time.
It's like, here, please walk through. And I said, okay, I can't resist this.
It was like, hey, here's this. Please mock me some more.
If you're just gonna lay it up for me like that, I am gonna spike it. I can't resist it.
I'd probably be mad
I'm
if you
weak. I'm
did.
a weak man, Red. All right. So that in a weird way, that actually leads us into our topic for the evening.
I forgive you.
I thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we are going to be talking about forgiveness, what it actually is, why it's a good thing, why we need it so bad, especially right now. Because, you know, there's a million things we could talk about, you know, on the show for the first one back. A few things have happened in the last couple of weeks. You know, the world continues to burn. You know, we're doing a full-on COVID reboot. You know, there's still riots. I don't know how many statues there are left that are still standing anywhere, but apparently the goal is to knock them all down, unless they're of actually bad people.
I forget the one statue that Nico actually tweeted out. I think it was a goat. Like they had set fire to a goat statue.
I heard about an elk that got.
Yeah, that was it.
That could have been Portland.
Racist elk.
Yeah, stupid racist elk. Freaking, it's a symbol of the white supremacy is the elk. Because there's like an Elks Lodge thing, and that's where old white guys go to drink or something.
I don't know.
So there's all kinds of things we could be talking about, but let's face it, there's a lot of people talking about that sort of thing right now, and for good reason. I certainly don't blame them at all. I've spent plenty of my own time talking about those things, but right now, why not take those things and say how they illustrate so desperately the need for like real, genuine forgiveness as we go about in our daily lives. Hey, it's Juan. Speaking of people, you got to forgive. I mean, geez.
I forgive you.
I forgive you for not sending me tasty tacos. Every time he posts a picture of food, I'm like, that looks good.
It does. Every single time.
Every single damn time.
Mm-hmm.
Freaking Juan. Anyway, the thing is, we very much need it right now. Arguably more than any other in our lifetimes. You know, I'm speaking obviously broadly, as opposed to any individual issues. Like broadly speaking, as a society, we need this now, maybe more than we have, at least in my lifetime. You know, and I'm genuinely questioning if I don't know that there's a way out of the current situation, but I know a little bit of genuine forgiveness will go a long way. So let's go ahead and start off with just what do we think forgiveness is? And anyone in the comments, feel free to chime in with your thoughts as well, because there's a lot of different thoughts about what forgiveness actually is, what it looks like, what you should do with it, when it should be offered, so on and so forth. And I'd like to get as many different perspectives as possible. So, Red, though, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
All right. Well, the way that I look at forgiveness is that just because you forgive somebody for something they've done wrong, it doesn't necessarily, And in most cases, it doesn't mean, hey, what you did is okay. I think a lot of people get that confused and say, oh, well, if I forgive them, that somehow justifies what they did. And that's not necessarily the case. It's more for the person who's actually offering the forgiveness, is how I see it. Like when I was in my abusive situation, it took me a long time because these are horrible things that somebody did to me. And I couldn't figure out how to forgive. And I was stuck. Like I was stuck in constant emotional. It was almost an emotional connection. But I found that when I was able to finally figure out a way to forgive, I started healing. I started laughing again. I started just enjoying life more. And that connection that I had through my trauma was no longer there. I wasn't connected to him in any other way. There was no bond that was holding us together through pain and everything like that. So that's why I think forgiveness is so important. It frees the person who is offering forgiveness. And it does not mean that you have to let these people back into your life to do the same thing over again. It's a freeing thing to do. Forgiveness is freedom.
Yes, exactly. And you're exactly right. Forgiveness is, it's largely not holding on to any sort of sense of anger, any sort of sense of entitlement, any sort of sense of retribution. Even in a way, it's letting go of any sort of sense of honor about when you're wronged. Because all of these other things demand, they demand some sort of retribution, some sort of payback. And you may or may not ever get it, for one.
Right.
And two, if you do, well, depending on the situation, it may just wind up perpetuating a cycle. You're going to go full on Hatfield and McCoy, and it's just never going to end. You wind up like in the Middle East, where you've got warring villages still pissed off at each other about somebody stole someone's goat 3 centuries ago. I mean, and given some of the unspeakable things that may have been done to the goat, I can kind of understand it, but we'll leave that aside.
No.
But yeah, it's a letting go. It's not, as you said, it's not saying, oh, it's okay. And maybe it's not. Maybe it's not okay. But you're choosing to go on with your life. You're choosing to say, okay, I'm not going to be mad. It's not even something I'm holding against you anymore. It's not something I'm holding against a person anymore.
Right.
I'm just going on with my life and not being mad. And that, like you said, that doesn't mean necessarily that it doesn't mean that you have to let, especially someone who is abusive, back into your life. It doesn't mean that if you've got that person who has, that person who has borrowed money from you 9 million times and never paid it back, it doesn't mean you have to keep doing it, because you're enabling bad behavior at that point.
Right.
But you're also not just holding on to it. You're not completely, somebody like that. So, the annoying, the annoying family member that keeps borrowing some stuff and never brings it back. You're not completely cutting that person out of your life. You're just saying, it's like, no, I'm not giving you any more of my stuff. No, I don't hate you. It's just clearly this is not working out. And it is all of those things. And of course, we'll get into some deeper examples that really kind of take it a step above and beyond. I mean, you forgiving your abuser is definitely an example of that, of going a step above and beyond what most people would do, because forgiving somebody for taking $20 from you is one thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's a lot easier to do. It's a lot easier to forgive the jackwagon that cut you off in traffic. It's even easier to forgive the guy who stole your car. It's all of those sorts of things. Those are relatively small infractions, but there are things where it goes above and beyond. And this is said a lot too. Forgive and forget. The forget.
No.
Sort of. You forget in the same way that you forgive, which is you let go of it. You're not holding on to it anymore. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna let you. Again, just to use the stealing stuff anymore. It's like I'm not giving you the keys to my house to watch it while I'm gone,
Right.
because I'm not an idiot.
And I think that's the part that people, it's you're forget, like you said, you're forgetting, but you're not. And the only reason that you should be remembering these things is to make sure that same situation doesn't happen again, right? Like it's not I'm remembering so that I can stay mad at you for the rest of my life, because that's not a healthy attitude to have. It's just not. No matter
No,
what the situation was, and no matter what a person does to you, it's not going to help you or your life.
it's corrosive.
Yes.
It settles. It literally settles into your soul and starts to eat it away. It starts
It's like
to eat.
poison.
Yes, and it starts to come out in other. It'll come out in other ways. It'll come out in more towards. It'll come out first, just largely towards the person that you're refusing to forgive, but it'll also come out towards other people. Other people who are totally innocent of it. It will sour you as a person,
Right.
and make you. Frankly, it's going to make you a lot less pleasant to be around if you're just always pissed off all the time, and that will happen. And yes, as Christina says over here in the chat, forgotten history does repeat itself, and this is absolutely true. It will absolutely, you will, if you completely forget, you will just allow yourself to repeat the same cycle again, and obviously that's not a good thing.
No.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely not. And they're, and as it goes to the current situation out there, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for forgiveness to go around. Unfortunately, the really tough part is there's one side of things that's completely uninterested in it. I mean, cancel culture is a perfect example of what happens when you refuse to forgive, when you refuse to let things go. I mean, you've actually it's a perfect example of, you've got this group of people who may or may not have experienced an actual wrong. I don't know, in any one particular person whatsoever, but even let's say you did. Let's say you're somebody who has suffered, police brutality and everything. If you're refusing to forgive that, okay, now you're joining this other group of people who are also similarly not, who are similarly completely refusing to forgive, and it's coming out in massive bursts of anger, literally around the country, actually around the world right now. And it's not helping.
No, and the sad thing is, since you want to bring up the current situation, it's like, and I don't know if you know or not, I'm just a white girl, so like I shouldn't talk on these things, but I'm going to anyway because I'm a human and I'm allowed to have an opinion regardless of my skin tone. What we have now happening is people being angry for something that didn't even happen to them.
Mm-hmm.
And their anger is directed towards people that didn't even do those things. So that makes no sense, that one side has absolutely no reason to apologize. And the other group, I'm sorry, it sounds horrible, and I'm probably going to get letters. You have no fucking reason to be angry. Unless a specific thing happened to you, you have no reason to be angry. I don't even know what you're angry about.
Yeah.
Like it's very egotistical of me. Let's say I wasn't abused, mm-hmm. right? And let's say it was my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I have no right to take her hurt on myself and make it about me. That's not what I went through. So I shouldn't be going around to other people and taking the anger out that my mother would have felt and should absolutely feel, and directing it towards people that didn't even do anything. Mm-hmm. That's not healthy, and it's not helping anybody at all.
Yeah. No, it doesn't. And like I said, it just keeps eroding at your soul, and it affects other people. And now you've got whole mobs of people that this has happened to, and it's literally affecting the whole of society. Shifting gears just a tad, you got Underdog pointing out that can't actually think of anywhere in perhaps in the Bible where says that we're supposed to forget. And honestly, I don't know that I can think of any place specifically where it says that. It comes from that idea comes from people trying to work out exactly how God's forgiveness, how God's grace works. Like, say, when I, as a Catholic, I go to confession, how exactly that works. As you know, what happens with the sin. In Catholic theology, it's that the sin is gone. The actual sin is gone. You may still need to do a little suffer a little justice as a result of it, but the sin itself is gone.
Right.
Whereas in like Lutheran theology, the sin is covered. It's still there, but it's just kind of covered up. God just kind of pretends to not see it. So, so the forgive and forget thing just kind of comes about as a way of trying to work out how God's forgiveness works and how that works out with sin. The specific forgive and forget thing, I wouldn't be surprised if that's, and I'd have to do some research, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's more of a specifically Calvinist thing. It has that sound to it. And of course, I'm assuming most of the people in the chat are also in America. America, whether you realize it or not, you're heavily influenced by Calvinism. Everyone from me, the Catholic, to the atheist down the road is very influenced by Calvinism, whether they want to admit it or not. It's just kind of like the default baseline religion of America in a sense.
Please don't get me started on Calvinists.
Yeah.
I will lose my shit.
This is not this is not meant to actually be a comparative theology podcast. I do for those who haven't been here before. I do lots of those too, because I really enjoy doing it. But getting back more directly to the topic at hand, Red, we were talking a couple of weeks ago about one of the best examples of forgiveness that maybe that's actually happened in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and lay it out there. What happened with those Amish people who for the people who may not recall?
Okay, well, I'm not 100% sure on all the actual details, but the gist of it, there was a schoolhouse, an Amish schoolhouse where children were, obviously. And a man that obviously had a lot of pain, a lot of suffering and anguish, he went into the schoolhouse and he actually ordered all the guys to leave, like all the boys to leave, and he wanted the girls to stay. So they were in this schoolhouse with a man with a gun. And I actually did look it up then, like an hour ago. I think it had said 4 were shot and killed. Like 4 of the kids died. Mm-hmm. 7 of the girls sustained injuries, but from what I read, they didn't actually die. So 4 died, 7 just had injuries. That sounded horrible. Just had injuries. But there were the kids that were in there, the girls, ranging from, I think it said 6 to 13. The oldest of the girls had said to the man in broken English, because I think they spoke Dutch. I don't know. But they had essentially said, kill me, leave the rest of them go. And her sister had said same thing, like, no, take my life, leave everyone else alone. Obviously that didn't happen. He shot everybody. And the only reason they knew that was because there were survivors from the schoolhouse.
Right.
So after all that happened, the Amish community ended up going to this man's funeral, because like most people that do these kind of things, he shot and killed himself before the police were able to arrest him. So they ended up going to his funeral where he had a wife and children. So they went and paid the respects and essentially gave forgiveness to the man that shot some of their kids and ended some of their lives, so that they could be there for her and the kids. Mm-hmm. And they specifically had told her, it's not our place to judge, it's God. Right. So after that was said and done, the community kind of came together and they did a fundraiser type of thing for the Amish people for either their funerals or whatever expenses they had due to what happened. The Amish community took some of that money and actually gave a certain percentage to the widow and the children that were left. And essentially told her if her and the kids needed anything, they would be glad to help.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I could do that.
Yeah. I mean, like when we were talking about it, that is above and beyond type stuff.
Yeah.
Those guys, that is a literally perfect example of true biblical forgiveness in action.
Yes.
They they didn't hold on to anger with the dude, which, I mean, if they did, who could blame them, honestly? And they didn't transfer the anger to his widow either.
Right.
Many people, again, understandably would. Maybe he's like, no, your husband killed my kid. I'm not going anywhere near you. And people who would do that wouldn't even necessarily be responding out of anger or hatred. It's just, no, it makes me think of that, and it's
a human emotion.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't blame anybody for doing that, but the fact that this community was able to get past those very understandable, very human reactions and take the whole concept of forgiveness to that level is, frankly, it's an example. It's an example literally for the entire world to follow.
Mm-hmm.
And again, would that more people would listen and remember and actually get the point of stories like that. That's part of the reason they exist, is so that we can learn from their example. There's an example, not within our lifetimes, but it's kind of part of the story of Saint Maria Goretti. She's largely a saint because she sort of died a martyr. She was 13, and like the stable hand or whatever he was for the family, tried to rape her. And she resisted to the point that he finally got frustrated and just basically stabbed her to death. And as she was dying, she actually forgave him. Specifically said to his face as she was dying, which he did not accept right away. He did not accept that forgiveness at first, which we'll get into that sort of thing in just a little bit. But he eventually did, and he actually became a monk. I think it was a monk.
I remember that story.
Yeah. I've told you this story before.
That could be how.
Yeah, he became like he became part of the Capuchin order. I don't know if it was as a friar or a monk specifically, but yeah, he eventually turned his entire life around, and it's because of the example of that one little girl.
That's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. And that right there, it gets into the need not just to give forgiveness, but to accept it when it's offered. Because there is a reaction on some people, and maybe you can speak to this. Maybe you've seen this actually in action, to not accept it, to like recoil from it, which I find strange, to be honest. But it's a thing. It absolutely is a thing to actually take that, to actually hear somebody say, "I forgive you," and actually not want it. But I know it's a thing.
You think that's pride? Because I wouldn't know how it could be anything else.
It's certainly pride. There's a couple of different ways pride works. The most obvious one that is easy to recognize is when people just say no, because if I accept your forgiveness, that means I did something wrong.
Right.
That means admitting you're wrong. But there's another more subtle way that it works. As like, no, by accepting the forgiveness, that's humiliating in a way. In a way, it's a level of it is. It's almost a level of humiliation, and a person's pride will respond and not want to accept any sort of humiliation, any sort of humbleness, any sort of, oh my gosh, this person is actually better than me because they're offering me this, even though I know I don't deserve it. So it's their
Right.
pride that will prevent them from actually being humble in that way. It's not so much I didn't do anything wrong pride. It's I know I did something wrong, but I don't want to admit it. I'm afraid of admitting it in a way. This is kind of what got Judas. A big time. And there's very often the contrast made between the way Judas responds after he denies Jesus and sets in motion his crucifixion, and the way Peter responds after he publicly denies Jesus while he's going to the trial. Judas, of course, hangs himself. Out of this because of all the guilt. And Peter, though, eventually, he goes on and he becomes the first pope and leads the early church, eventually dying a martyr in Rome. And the difference is that Peter was willing to accept the forgiveness that was offered. He was willing to humble himself. He was willing to say, I know I did wrong. I can admit it. And thank you for forgiving me. Judas wasn't able to do that. He wasn't able to go there. He wasn't able to suffer the humiliation of Jesus' forgiveness. And so he killed himself. So he hung himself from the nearest tree. And this similar effects happen today. If you refuse to accept forgiveness, it is just as corrosive to you as it is to the person who doesn't offer it. It will eat away at you because you will know that you need it. But at the same time, you're refusing to just accept what you know you need. I know, it's stupid. People are stupid. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Well, is that them necessarily refusing to accept the forgiveness, or is that them just refusing to forgive themselves?
It can be both. I mean, at some point, you probably get to a point where there's not much of a distinction between those two things.
Right.
Because there is, I don't know, I'm thinking about it, and I haven't put a lot of thought into this, to be honest. So I'm going a little off the cuff. I'm not sure if the forgive yourself thing if it's even really a thing.
You know what I mean?
Let me explain what I mean by that.
Okay.
Because I would argue, or at least I'm tempted to argue that you can't actually forgive yourself. All you can do is accept forgiveness that is offered to you. When people are, hold on to guilt, when they hold on, when they hold on to guilt, when they hold on to shame, when they keep beating themselves up over something that they did in the past, typically these days, we call that not forgiving yourself. I don't think that's it. I think it's you're not willing to accept it. And as I'm talking through this, Fred, I'm wondering if it actually is an aspect of the way that of the secularizing tendency of modern society, because much of modern society either denies the fact that anyone actually needs forgiveness, or essentially acts as though there's no source that forgiveness can come from other than yourself. If there's no higher power to forgive you, if there is no God to forgive you, then any forgiveness that really matters would have to come from within. So I honestly think that whole phrase, frankly, is at least potentially just the result of our increasingly secularized society. Or I should say de-Christianized society, because there has been a bit of a rediscovery of a spiritual side to life, but it's been fundamentally pagan as opposed to Christian. Which again gets off into tangents that I don't want to. It goes into rabbit trails. I don't want to go too far down on this particular episode. We'll save that for another time.
Okay.
So I don't know. I was kind of spitballing that. Does that make any sense? Or
Yeah, I just think you're wrong, and we'll talk about it after we're done.
fair enough. Yeah, we can talk about it now. It's fine.
I don't know. I think in Christianity you find there's actually more people that generally state exactly what I said. They find it easier to forgive other people for wrongdoing, but they can't forgive themselves for the things that they do wrong.
Yeah, but like I said, is it them not forgiving themselves, or is it refusing to accept forgiveness?
Both.
Put it this way. I would say, in the Bible, only God can forgive sins.
Right.
So I'm not God. All I can do is accept what's offered, or refuse to.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I'm saying. It's like in terms of how it actually looks to the outside, it looks essentially the same. But I do think, and for other reasons that again kind of go beyond our scope here, I think it does matter where the actual forgiveness is coming from. And Underdog points out too that a lot of people will think it's a joke, a trap of some kind. Like now somebody's trying to get them to lower their guard so they can get their revenge, perhaps. Which, if you yourself are a person who thinks in those terms, that would make sense. That gets to that reminds me of a Lord of the Rings reference. They're talking about. Shut up! I'm a nerd. You know this. This is not a surprise to you.
I just want to make it through one episode where we didn't talk about Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars.
I have never talked about Harry Potter other than the reference.
It's all the same thing.
Was that? No.
It's all the same thing.
Okay, see, now you're just trying to piss me off.
I'm not trying to. It's just a lovely side effect. That's all.
But there's this thing where they're talking about, it's towards the end of Return of the King, and they're talking about Gandalf is finally revealing to everyone his plan to actually send in the hobbits to destroy the ring, and he's talking about how that never would occur to Sauron. And that's the only reason that it might work is because the concept that they would actually not try to hold on to power to use the ring for their own ends. It doesn't even cross his mind because that's not how he thinks. He thinks only in terms of power and control. So it completely blinds him to be able to see another way. Just like Underdog says, if you've got somebody who primarily thinks only in terms of honor and revenge, then the idea that somebody would be operating outside of that paradigm is completely alien. It'd be like, I don't know. I'm trying to come up with another good analogy. I'm failing miserably right now. Much as I wish it were otherwise. Here we are. And yeah, as Underdog says, it's suggested that earlier, the whole somebody going, oh, so now this person thinks they're better than me. And again, that's pride. That's pride rearing its ugly head, its ever ugly head, and refusing to concede that somebody may be standing on slightly higher ground than you, because as Obi-Wan taught us, if you got the high ground, you have to give up. There, I got a Star Wars reference in too. You happy, Red?
Oh my gosh, no!
You didn't even notice.
No, because I don't like that crap. I don't care. Don't care.
See, now I'm trolling you a little bit.
It's fine. Just ignore you.
Yeah, that's not going to work, and you know it.
I know.
All right, so I'm looking for what are some other good, I don't know, other good examples of forgiveness we could think of out there that might that make resonate these days? I can think of one. You got one? Nothing?
Of course.
No, go for it.
Wait, what?
An example of some other example of forgiveness that might actually be relevant to today specifically.
I don't know, when someone says something that offends you, maybe just like recognize that when we're, I don't know, teenagers or when we're younger or say
Uh,
something in the past, that's not necessarily who we are today. And
yep.
maybe just say, you know what? I'm going to, instead of trying to cancel you, I'm going to take the time to find out who you are today and see if you deserve to be canceled now.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I think it matters. It's people change, people grow.
And it does. And it's one of the worst things about cancel culture. They'll go and dig up something that they choose to be offended by today. It might be 20 years old. And it's just one of those things. It's no matter how much a person gets on their knees and begs, they're just like, no, you're terrible. It's like people are being held hostage to this nonsense. Another salient example is actually after the Civil War. Lincoln was, charity to all, malice towards none. He wanted people to, he wanted the North and the South to be able to actually, to truly reconcile, so we could actually be one country again. And it's why, if you go to Arlington Cemetery in D.C., there are Confederate and Union soldiers buried there. Because it wasn't about holding on to something. It wasn't about punishing the South or anything like that. It's like, okay, you know what? This is over. We're going to get over it. We're going to get past it. And we've got to start healing. So he was essentially offering mercy towards all of them. And of course, as anyone who knows anything, Reconstruction didn't exactly play out that way. But, since Lincoln was kind of, dead, it's not really his fault. He was actually arguing for a much more generous terms than wound up actually happening. He tried and did pretty well overall with that at the outset, but unfortunately others didn't feel the same way, and it led to the Reconstruction shenanigans, which led to Jim Crow, and which led to the civil rights issues back in the 60s and continues to have ripple effects today. All because some people didn't like the fact that Lincoln wanted to offer forgiveness. A similar example is actually after World War I. The Treaty of Versailles was extremely harsh, especially on the Germans. Very, very, very harsh. And Pope Benedict XV at the time warned everybody else. It's like, don't come down on them like this. Don't come down on them this hard. I'm not saying they don't have it coming, but I'm still saying don't do it, because it's going to lead to worse later on. And, well, we kind of know what happened a couple of decades later. This little thing called World War II, which was way worse than World War I. All because, well, not only because, people are still responsible for their own actions, but the fact, I know. What? I know. Yeah, I know. It's crazy, right? And but still, it put the country in a situation where they were looking, one, for a scapegoat, two, looking for anyone who could show them a way out of their situation. Along comes Hitler, handy with both. And yeah, we all know what happened. Had the Allies been a little bit more generous at Versailles, could World War II have been avoided? Possibly. Granted, we don't know, but certainly possibly. Certainly they were warned that something like that would happen, and they didn't listen. And sure enough, it happened. Yeah. Now, all that said, this is something where um, you meant, you kind of keyed on the whole people are responsible for their own actions. Absolutely, they are. And this is
Ridiculous.
something, unfortunately, it's not something you see reflected in media very much anymore.
No.
I mean, now, and I don't even mean just like the news media. I also mean like the entertainment media. How many stories? I mean, you've got, you've got one particularly young one yet, and they how many stories are there where it's like, well, the bad guy is bad because of something the good guy did a long time ago. It's like, no, the good guy is not the real bad guy here. The good guy was probably did that. In fact, there was actually movies. Have you seen the movie Spies in Disguise?
No.
Okay.
You looked very upset when I said no.
No, it's a good thing. It's not a terrible movie in and of itself, but it is definitely one of those where it's like, oh, you're blaming the good guy for all the bad things the bad guy did? Really? Again? Because it was one of those things where, the good guy was trying to stop bad guys from doing bad things, caused some sort of injury to bad guy, and bad guy just became more bad, basically. And, you could tell they were blaming it because the good guy didn't, I don't know, hug the bad guy. That would have stopped it. I'm like,
oh my gosh.
I'm watching this whole thing and I'm like, this is so much bullcrap right now. So much bullcrap. I just don't know. Because a lot of it, too, is the dynamic between the main spy guy, the good guy, and this gadget designer who is essentially, will save the world through inflatable hugs and glitter bombs. And I'm not kidding. And I'm not making that up. And they argue back and forth. I'm like, but the spy guy's right. I can't put up a kitty glitter hologram and then all the bad guys are just going to stop being bad. That's not how anything works. This movie is stupid. But it's a trend. It's big part of the trend to essentially blame the good guy for bad things that happen.
Oh, that reminds me. There was a story. I think it was some guy that was trying to rob a house, and he got up on the roof and essentially fell through the sunroof or whatever because it wasn't properly, I don't know, kept up with, or it wasn't installed properly. And the guy fell through the roof. And then that person sued the homeowner and actually fucking won for injuries. He was trying to rob the person.
Yeah.
Fuck?
I've heard of stories like that. And it's
what?
It's like, wait a minute. Y'all are dumb.
I should have been a judge. I'd be like, well, that fucking sucks. Maybe you shouldn't rob places. I don't know. Then you wouldn't fall through the roof.
I would love it if you were a judge. If you would make Judge Judy look like a friggin' lightweight.
Oh, that'd be fun.
She's so tough. Oh, just you wait. You ain't seen Judge Red. They'd have to air the show after dark though.
HBO.
Yeah. This would be an HBO Max original, definitely. It'd probably be a little too colorful for network TV. A little spicy. But and there are lots of examples of forgiveness and the power of it working in history, or the lack of it also working in history. We just got done talking about that. World War I, then not much forgiveness there. Boom, World War II. Clearly, we were a little calmer after that. Of course, probably has to do with the fact that we also split the country up.
Well, and when we go through like cancel culture and stuff, yeah. I am very thankful that when I was at my best friend's house visiting, that there were no cameras in there, because I probably would have been canceled, because she kept saying like, I'm Jewish, right? I'm like, we've been best friends for a long time. So like, of course I know you're Jewish. Like,
Right.
does that matter? But then I was like, why do you keep telling me you're Jewish? Is it because I have a little bit of German in me? Like, you want me to put you in a stove? Like, what's going on here? You want, and she goes, oh, now I wouldn't fit in a stove because she's a big girl. So like, we just had that little banter back and forth. But had anyone actually been there or heard that, they'd be like, oh my gosh, she's a Nazi. She wants to kill her best friend. No, it's freaking funny. I have some German in me and she's Jewish. Of course I'm going to threaten to throw her in a stove. That's what friends do. Okay? That's what happens. If you're going to be my friend, I'm going to threaten you with violence. Like, that's just how it is. It's just, no one has a sense of humor.
Honestly, somebody type something in the comments. I want to make sure that YouTube didn't just completely kill the stream. Anything, I don't care what. Just type in oven.
So someone in the chat's like, "Shit, I'm Jewish. I gotta get out of here."
Ray's gonna kill me.
She's Hitler. What the hell?
Little. Well, never mind.
But they don't even forgive. They don't even forgive for people that are just legitimately trying to make people laugh. Just because it's an off-color joke doesn't mean that everyone that joke is directed to is going to take it offensively. Just because you did doesn't matter. Yeah. Doesn't matter. No one cares how you feel. I'm sorry. No one does.
No one does. No one gives a flying rat's crap.
No.
How you feel at all.
I don't.
No. Yeah. No, me neither. I don't really care about the feels. I don't care about the feels of retards. I'm sorry.
Whoa, you were just ableist there. Is that how you say that word?
Yeah.
Canceled.
Yeah, sure.
You are canceled.
Fine. Cool. Yeah. That gets that actually it's gonna have to be another episode, but the seeds of the current culture, I look back and I saw them like 15 years ago, like very clearly. But I could clearly pinpoint specific instances where I now see that they were clearly the seeds of the culture we're currently living in. And it's like, wow. And here we are. That stuff that I thought was just wacko, weird fringe stuff. Yeah, that's the mainstream ideology right now.
Like, I don't know who Underdog is, but he's pretty funny. He's like, if y'all are friends, oh my goodness.
If you're all friends, you might as well just jump in the oven together.
Look, I'm all about laughs, okay? I don't take anything too seriously, and I don't think anyone should, because life is way too hard. If you can't laugh, then you're probably not going to survive.
Especially these days, man. I swear, if you can't laugh at the crazy, you're gonna go freaking bonkers,
right?
You're gonna just flat out, just lose your ever-loving mind.
Okay, so back to the forgiveness thing. Do I have to forgive the feminists for all this stuff they say? Because I'm gonna have a hard time with that.
You have to forgive them, but that doesn't mean you have to tolerate them.
Okay, cool. I can deal with that. Okay.
There's a difference. You can still call them out for not making any sense, for being hypocritical, for being flat out stupid. Okay. I think you can still do that.
Okay. I'm good then.
Yeah, well, good. Now, there is this concept, actually, and there's this concept that forgiveness has to be earned.
No.
I hear that a lot.
That's ridiculous. Respect has to be earned. Forgiveness does not.
Right. I completely agree with that. In fact, it's one of the things that makes forgiveness is that it doesn't even have to be asked for.
Right.
You just do it. And it doesn't even have to be like this person, it doesn't mean like, the person cut me off in traffic and I'm going to forgive them. You don't have to follow that person to the parking lot and just yell out the window, I forgive you. Although it would probably freak them out.
That'd be funny. I'm going to try that.
It might be worth doing just because it'd be hilarious. But then you're kind of using forgiveness as revenge.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm kind of tempted to try. I'm not going to lie. It's like, how will I feel afterwards? I'll be amused.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I hear it a lot. Like, well, they didn't tell me. They didn't say they were sorry. They didn't apologize. People don't have to actually apologize for you to forgive them. Like, it's
Right.
not. It's not this back and forth thing. Forgiveness is not a back and forth. Forgiveness is you saying, "Hey, I'm human. I make mistakes. Hey, what you did was really messed up, but you know what? I'm going to forgive you because I understand that we all make mistakes." That person does not have to say they're sorry to you for you to forgive them. Just freaking do it. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah. It's not even a thing, again, where you don't necessarily have to go out of your way to let that person know that you forgive them. Just do it and let go of it.
Okay, this underdog person has to know me somehow.
Well,
because they brought up pineapple pizza and then said, "Don't hurt me."
If they're at all familiar with you on Twitter, they know of your deep and abiding love of pineapple pizza.
I will cut all of you.
He'll try.
Probably. I have to get a ladder.
I'm glad you went there first.
I'll split the back of your ankle. Okay.
I'm glad you went there first. Like, you could probably slice my Achilles tendon. I think you can reach up that high.
Oh, it's so funny.
Yeah, I know. And incidentally, Red and I have actually met in real life, so she knows I'm a lot taller than her.
Shut up, okay? We did it. Jeez.
Okay. I just
in a midget circus.
I thought I might have to repeat it a couple times. I don't know if the sound lost its way on the way down there. I don't know. But anyway. So anyway, we're gonna forgive the people who invented pineapple pizza. But maybe we're not gonna forgive Underdog for the tuna noodle casserole pizza. That just doesn't sound right. That sounds like
but you just said
I have before God and man. I'm sorry.
You said I have to forgive for pineapple pizza because you eat it.
But it
doesn't matter. I feel the same way about pineapple pizza as you do for this tuna casserole. You know what? I forgive him. He doesn't need your forgiveness, okay? I forgive him. I forgive you.
Good. I'm glad you forgave him on my behalf.
You're welcome.
But tuna casserole pizza.
Yeah, that's weird.
What? Are you drinking? Are you drinking the tuna juice? Is that what made you come up with that?
No, he puts tuna juice on the pizza.
This is wrong.
Ew. I don't know. I think they're trolling us. There's no way that happened.
It's possible. It's possible we're being trolled right now.
We have to. There's no way somebody did that.
No one that evil could possibly
idiotic.
No one that evil could possibly exist. That's just true. But yeah,
he's trying to test our forgiveness. See,
it was a character's idea. I see. He's blaming it on the characters in the book that he's writing. That's what he's doing.
Tuna juice.
just wrong. Well, we're
throw that book away.
Yeah, that character's clearly an idiot.
Kill him off.
All to drown that character in tuna juice.
Inject it into his veins.
Do it. Oh yeah.
See, I could write a
wow,
good
have we gotten off topic?
I don't know.
Squirrel.
What happened? Wow.
And we are actually getting close to the hour. So, Red, do you have any last thoughts here before we get ready to wrap this sucker up and put a bow on it?
Sure. People are dumb. So when they are dumb, just forgive them because you're kind of dumb too. So that's my advice.
That is the best, that is the best and astonishingly accurate theological breakdown I've ever heard of, don't
forgiveness.
Stop pointing out the speck in your brother's eye when you've got a freaking log in your own.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's basically what you said, just with very different words.
Yeah, I like my version better.
Well, you know what? I'll go ahead and call up the guys at Zondervan and see if you can get a contract to do your own Bible translation.
When I talk to God, I'm going to say, why didn't you insert this part? This would have been good.
Because I think this would resonate more, really. God, I mean, you should really listen to me. I mean, you haven't been on Earth in a while.
You don't know what's going on down there.
Yeah, yeah. Suddenly I'm feeling like I'm going to need to go to confession in the morning.
Me
Um,
too. I'm not even Catholic, and I think I should go.
good for the soul, as they say.
It's like I just go into a Catholic church. Like, I'm not Catholic, but I just really need to do this.
But trust me, I need to do this.
Please listen to me.
It's got to happen. So just, did you work with me here, Padre?
Listen, God gave me this personality. That's all I'm saying. Like, he's already up there face palming.
Oh, sure. Blame God for your problems.
Oh my gosh.
All right. Well, on that interesting note, it's about time to wrap up this show. Thanks everybody for tuning in and for hanging out. I think we had one or two new people in there,
Yes.
and also thank you to Juan and Matt for the generous comments on my hair. Thank you so much. And I feel better, so much better about myself, and also a little uncomfortable. And we are getting back to our regular weekly schedule here, and we are continuing to work on expanding Fighting the Void. Behind the scenes, I've got a few other personalities on tap here to get started, and it's gonna be pretty cool. It's not gonna officially launch for a while yet, so you won't hear me talk too much more about it until we get closer to really launching it. But stay tuned. Few months down the road, there's going to be some pretty interesting, exciting developments, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm going to be there too.
Yeah, you are. You are.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
I said it was going to be great. I mean, how could it be great if you're not there,
right? You just don't want me to yell at you after you turn that little live button thingy off.
You're going to yell at me anyway. Because that's what you do.
Accurate. Okay.
So, next week, Jeff Dornick will be back here. We're going to be talking about the latest essay collection that he's been working on. It's about how the state is basically subverting the church and using it to help gain control. And it's going to be awesome. I know one of the contributing authors is Denise McAllister, who actually got canceled by Ben Shapiro.
What?
It's a bit of a story, but
let me go off the air. I want to hear it.
Yeah. I'll tell you the story for those who want to know more about it. Go ahead and just Google like Denise McAllister and Ben Shapiro. You'll probably be able to find it. And yeah. Also a quick plug. I was actually on Jeff's show, Freedom One-on-One. He posted that up yesterday, I believe. So go ahead and search for that, and you can hear actually our discussion about current events and the utter craziness that is the fact that Kanye West may be the most Christian candidate running. So figured that one out.
Lord help us.
Yes, because we clearly live in the most interesting timeline that has ever been conceived in the mind of God. Because wow is all I got to say to that. And on that note, thank you once again, everybody, for tuning in. Be here pretty much every Saturday at 9 p.m. where we discuss whatever the heck it is we feel like discussing at the time. And again, for those who are new, that could be anything from theology to comic books. So stay tuned. Eventually, we're going to be talking about something that you find interesting. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you one more time. We'll see you next